a big goal of this channel is to help you guys learn from my mistakes. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to learn the hard way yourself. I'm just hoping I can suggest something that maybe shortens that gap or that time it takes for you to realize something. I am really just trying to suggest things. And obviously, not everything I say is going to work for every single person. These are more just suggestions. Now, that being said, I've learned a lot over the years of running 100-mile races. I did 10 marathons in 10 days. I had a over 900-day running streak. And so I want to talk about some common running mistakes that I see with people or that I've made personally myself. And the first one's actually a very simple, but not necessarily obvious one. And that is using the same pair of running shoes for years and using the same pair for every single run. And now I know running shoes aren't necessarily the most cheap thing in the world, but one of the things that's important to understand is that shoes wear out, just like clothes, just like tools even, and I really like the comparison of shoes are a tool. And so I'm looking at them right now, I got like 12 different pairs of shoes, and that might be a little excessive, you may not need that, but the point is I have a tool for every workout and everything I'm trying to accomplish. I have speed workout shoes, I have trail running shoes, I have recovery shoes, I have ones that are less, there's less of a foam and there's less of a sole in order for me to just feel more connected to the ground and work out my feet a little bit better. And so the point is, there's tools for different things. But what can happen when people get into running, they kind of do it, don't do it, do it, don't do it, or they started 5 years ago and then fell off the habit, and then they pull out the old pair of running shoes, and then they go for a run. And one big thing that gets in the way of people being able to be consistent and enjoy running is injuries. And there's a lot of factors onto why someone might get injured. I talk about this kind of stuff all the time. But something that's not addressed as often is if you're using the same pair of running shoes over years, or maybe you're consistent, but you've had that same pair of shoe the whole year and you've put 1,000 miles on it or something, that is going to increase the risk of getting injured, especially if you're not strong or seasoned enough when it comes to running. And so I think a big thing to address is if you are trying to get back into running and you want to be consistent and you're pulling out those dusty old running shoes from 3 years ago, I just suggest getting a new pair, or just keep in mind that shoes last anywhere from, 200 to 500 miles is what people say. Every shoe might be a little bit different. And so if I come off an injury, one thing I do is I just reset, get new shoes, because maybe some were more worn down than I thought. Or if you're getting back into running, it's fun to reward yourself with a new pair of shoes. So it's a big part of it. Obviously, I mean that's what we're running on. It's the one thing we use every single run, unless you're doing barefoot running. So it's worth the investment. And a big mistake is just having old shoes. Like not the first, but I think the third half marathon I ran two. Broke up with a girl, so I stopped running because she got me into it, and then I went and ran a half a couple years later. And I pulled out the old pair of shoes that had holes in them. So probably wasn't the best thing for me. And obviously shoes that are not worn down and more fresh are going to help with your run and race. So anyways, that's the first common mistake I see people make. The second one is just not fueling enough. It depends on your goals when it comes to running. A lot of people use running as cardio to lose weight and burn off the calories, and that's great, and that's awesome. If you're trying to get into running and set PRs and run your first marathon and stay healthy through the process, one big thing is you have to fuel enough. For me, on average, at least what my watch says, I burn roughly 120 calories per mile, something like that. I don't know how accurate that is, but I've seen it over the last 5 years. So if you think about that, if I go on a 10-mile run, I'm burning at least 1,000 calories, if that's accurate. And so I'm not trying to lose weight, and so I need to be able to fuel myself so I don't get like skinny down to the bone and lose muscle, but also so I have enough energy for the next run. I think a lot of people do a good job of focusing on one run or their tempo run, or they're working their way up to their long run and they make sure they're plenty fine for that run. Like they'll fuel plenty on Friday night so then they can do their long run on Saturday. But if they don't fuel as much or they don't eat as much during that run and after that run, what about the run that comes up on Monday after the rest day? And so the point is you need to constantly be fueling, not necessarily for this workout, but for the future workouts. And when I ran 10 marathons in 10 days, I had to eat a shit ton because I had another marathon the next day. And so, yeah, I could fuel great leading up to the first one, but if I didn't eat enough during that run and then after that run, I was going to be compromised on the second, third, fourth, marathon, etc. So, I mean, that might be an extreme case, but the same thing is happening when you run 3 or 4 days a week. And especially when you stack strength training on top of that, when you're very active like this, especially with running, how many calories it burns and how much effort it is, you really just got to make sure you're eating enough. So I've started fueling even on my short runs, 5 miles. It's still worth it to take a gel for me, or eat something in the middle of the run, even though I may not need it because I'm not running for 3 hours. I'm only running for 45 minutes, but it's because I'm planning for the next run. So if you get burned out, or you hit a wall when it comes to running and you take time off and you hop back on running a couple months later, there's many variables like there is with everything I talk about, but one of those may be the fact that you're under fueling. So something to pay attention to. Obviously, if you're trying to lose weight with running, you're gonna have to kind of under fuel because you want to be in a caloric deficit. But I mean, I'm not that person, so I'm speaking about what my goals are, and I need to constantly be fueling for the next thing. Now, the third mistake people make is they fall off the consistency, and it's really sad, honestly, because there's a lot of variables, but sometimes people fall off the being consistent with running because of an injury. They get burned out. Their wife is way too busy, whatever. They have to make some lifestyle changes to make more time or wake up earlier, whatever it is. And I think as much as I love the grind, no excuses and things like that, I think it's very valuable and helpful. I've needed that for my own mindset to be able to push through hard things and run ultras. At the end of the day, I think not everyone's trying to be like a David Goggins, and if you are, obviously you should copy that mindset and that style. I think a lot of people, at least that I run into, are just wanting to be casual with running, maybe run a half marathon, but it's about health. And if you want to be healthy, you have to be consistent with things. It is a lifestyle. And so I think one thing that can happen is people set these big, great goals of they've never ran, so they're going to run 5 days a week, every week for the year, and they get a month in and they burn out, or it's too much, or they get injured, right? And so I think if you pick something that you can be very consistent with that is almost underwhelming, but then you lock in that habit, then you can stack things on top of it. It's that book Atomic Habits talks about it. You go to the gym for 5 minutes and you actually leave after 5 minutes even if you feel good, because you want to stack the small wins of accomplishing those goals. And so it's the same thing with this YouTube channel. When I started doing this, I was posting every single day, and then I would stop for a couple months. So then I started doing a couple times a week because it was manageable and it was underwhelming until I locked in that habit, and then I found a strategy that works for me to post pretty much every single day. So same rules apply. Is if you're trying to get into running and you're one of those people that yo-yo, you get into it, you stop, you get into it, you stop. Maybe it's an injury, maybe it's because you do too much, whatever it is. But I think one good way to do this is you start by running 3 days a week, or 2 days a week, or 1 day a week for a month. And once you've accomplished that throughout a month, it's a big win and it's worth celebrating. And then you can stack on more runs, more volume, etc. I had a crazy big burnout spell throughout a year and a half, and I just wasn't running. And when I got back into it, I wanted to jump back into 60, 70-mile weeks. And I knew that was going to hurt me, and it was just going to dramatically change my life. And so I decided, you know what, if I can get 4 days a week consistently, that's worth it enough to me. And I'm starting to get back into where I'm doing 5 days a week, increasing volume, etc. So I think it's really important that maybe you pick something that's underwhelming, and it's like, well, of course I can run once a week, but have you been is the question. And if you haven't, 1 day a week is more than 0 days a week. And if you've been doing 0 days a week, it's a win to do 1 day a week. And then of course you can stack other things on top of that. I'm all for just dramatically flipping your life and being like, this changes tomorrow, but how often as humans do we do that and it doesn't happen? I would rather stack small wins and feel like progress than do 5 days a week, feel like it's awesome, and then get burned out and stop for another half a year. So hopefully one of these tips is beneficial for you, and I'm always open to taking questions in the comments about things you're trying to figure out with running. And if I have something to say, I don't have the answers to everything, but if I do have an answer, I'll make a video on it. So if you like running content, that's what this channel is about. I'm trying to help people learn from my mistakes and avoid injuries and set PRs and all the fun stuff that happens with running. So if you like that, consider subscribing. And if not, that's cool too. I still hope you got something out of this video, and I hope I get to see you in another video sometime soon. Peace.